Today is all about pickleball as we get a chance to chat with Jonny Andrews, also known as Jonny Pickleball. He opens up about his transition out of the Army into pickleball, where he found joy and purpose in being a part of something bigger than himself.
He's pretty involved in pickleball from all angles as a pro athlete, commentator, coach, and director of the PPA. He got in at the ground level before the sport really took off to where it is today.
Yeah, and pickleball is everywhere these days. If you haven't tried it yet, then you are missing out on all the fun. The weather's getting warmer, so you better grab your paddle and hit the court.
You gonna start?
All right. Well, we're excited for this episode of Sports Fuels Life. We have Jonny Pickleball Andrews here with us today. Very excited to have Jonny joining us from Dallas. Thanks for coming on with us.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me, man. This is going to be great.
Yeah, so a little bit of backstory. You were a veteran to start. We see the flag in the background there, and then yep. So thanks for your service there, Rob.
Yeah.
And then tell us how you got into pickleball.
Yeah, for sure. So I can go back even a little bit. I was in the Army for X amount of years, about 6 years, I'd say, something in there. I got out in 2013, but before that, I had played every sport that required me to be 6'8". So which was a little bit of a bummer, but I played all types of sports, tennis, basketball, whatever, just kind of an athlete without a cause. And then when I got out, though, I had taught tennis and worked at country clubs and had played tennis at a relatively high level, but not anything I'd ever write home about. And so I ended up kind of working when I got out of the service, and I'll go into more about that later, but I ended up doing a lot of maintenance and on clay courts in Florida. And so I really needed to, provide. I had two boys and a family, so I had to make sure I had to be able to provide for them. So that kind of meant, me getting up at 5 a.m. to get these courts ready and all that stuff. And then that kind of led to an assistant pro position. And then all of a sudden, within 1 year, I was a director at a club. And then, so, a lot of work went into that, and then after that, kind of moved a little bit to be director at different facilities. And then all of a sudden I was working at the Ritz-Carlton as the director for tennis in Naples. And then I come across this park, and there's pickleball. And, it just kind of was in Naples, Florida. And all these people were super nice and really welcoming. And so I started playing there, and it took off, and that was it. I did not look back after that. That was it. So that's how I found it, and it's pretty crazy to jump into and say, hey, this is what we're gonna do. So
Well,
especially before it got popular. So
that's such a cool path and so unique. And we're just so excited to have someone on this podcast who is so involved in pickleball. It's really rising in popularity. So what's it like to be playing pickleball and so involved in pickleball at this time?
Oh gosh, I know when people say, do you eat, sleep, and breathe it? And I'm like, yeah, pretty much. Right now, my hands are in every aspect of it. It was part of that with the grassroots. It's pretty crazy to see it evolve in certain ways. I'm very happy in a lot of different ways of how it's kind of starting to mold and shape and go. But to be able to have a voice in that is really cool. And so, I've done and a lot of the reasoning for me to even have a voice in that is because of all the things that I've done through the grassroots of it, and traveling the country and just mingling with people and learning so many different nuances with the game. And then, a lot of things that people and struggles that people deal with in certain ways, that things that happened before. So I can be like, hey, let's not make the same mistake because this is what happened back in 2016. This is what happened back then when they tried to build it here. Let's not make that same mistake as we go forward trying to build this here. And so that kind of stuff, I think, is starting to kind of prove, because of how much I've done in podcasts and commentary and playing and, pioneering entertainment for pickleball. And, just all these little things that I've done is kind of come into I guess a full circle thing, like all full circle, where I've been able to have everything kind of happen to where my hands are in every part of this pro tour right now.
No, and that's usually how it goes, right? You get the experience from every angle that you have, and started off in tennis, you found yourself on the pickleball court, and you started loving it. Just for our listeners, how did the nickname Johnny Pickleball stick? How did it start? How did it become a thing? And
Man.
why do you love it so much now and own it?
Yeah, I think Johnny Pickleball was a thing that was I think 2017 probably. And so I think 2017 I decided to I was working at a facility, and we wanted to come up with something. We were talking about, I think Johnny Football was doing something around that time too. So I think that and then I was like, well, I'm like an all-American dude. I was in the Army, I might as well. I would like that. And then one of my buddies was a big fan of wrestling, and then all of a sudden we had a camera, and we put a camera in because we wanted to catch anytime we did something cool on the court. And that was done from like Pickleball Central. And so it all kind of came together. And I was just like, man, how about I create like something for people to come watch? How about I create something? And so I was like, let's call it the Johnny Pickleball Show. It'd be like the Harlem Globetrotters of pickleball. And so I did. I created it, and I had some of the best players who are some of the best players in the world currently in that first show when no one came and watched, and it was on like a Nest camera. And but that's really, I mean, Johnny Pickleball came about. One of the guys, actually, there was somebody else who had it trademarked. He had an H in his name. It was Johnnny. And so my name's Jonathan. And so I was like, I don't have an H. And so how about I make it Jonny? And yeah, so that kind of worked. And then it just kind of took over. And what I figured out a long time ago, somebody told me it was probably the best advice I ever had when it came to just sports, I guess, in general. And a lot of times people play in other sports, let's say tennis, for an example, they have a tennis racket, and I'm with Wilson, I'm with Head, I'm with whoever, Babolat, or whoever they're with. The one thing I wanted to make sure I didn't do, especially in pickleball, was hide behind brands and to be my own brand. And so I wanted to brand myself. And really, I think there was only three of us that ever did that at the beginning, and that was Tyson McGuffin, Frank Anthony Davis, and then Johnny Pickleball. And later on, Simone Jargine came, and then some other people. But that was pretty much the first few that really started in Puppet Master, and there were some others that had done some things too. But that's where the names of just I need to brand myself. I need to be like a wrestler here. Let's have intro music. Let's do something. And so that's kind of where it all started. Nothing too crazy, but just kind of ran with it and stuck to it and just kept building the brand, and had someone design my logo, and early, and I still use the same logo. So it's cool. I like that part.
Well, I love hearing the part too, just creating the entertainment value, and especially in a growing sport. And now it's so popular. So to what extent do you think that, I guess, creating your own entertainment value for this sport?
Yeah.
Now, obviously you have done that for yourself, but at what level has that created this growth across the entire sport?
Yeah, so it's changed the landscape for sure. I think I started off doing a lot of streaming with the entertainment value with the emceeing. It was really cool actually, and just to see, I emceed the center court on this past Sunday in Mesa, Arizona, while we were national on Fox. And so to be able to MC the court like it was my old school Johnny Pickleball show, to see that kind of happen was a really cool moment. But it was also because I was the beginning of that pioneer of creating a kind of entertainment, right? And so like making it fun, making it lively, but it was all still with the best players in the world. And so yeah, when I started doing the show, I mean, it was nobody was there at the beginning, but then it was standing room only. And then all of a sudden I moved it down to where the US Open is. And it was, I mean, we got to the point where we had a show there was 600 to 800 people in attendance. And it was, I mean, after that, when during the pandemic hit, I took the show all over the country, and gave people something to watch while they were at home. So people are like, well, were you isolated? I was like, yeah, I was the only one on the plane, dude. I was like, so it was, so I've done a lot of that to where I was able I had to learn how to do all the video editing. I had to learn how to do all that. I did that for the first month during COVID, I remember. But I had, there were really good crowds, but I got to meet really cool people. And I've had every pro in the game do my show at one time or another, even when they were really little, or, I've seen other pros grow, and that's pretty cool too. in that part, they've never, the coolest part about that was none of the pros, no matter who they are, number one in the world, number two, number whatever they are right now, no one ever asked me for a dime. And so financially to be in my show. And so that was a matter of respect as well as exposure for them. And even now, when you look at the brackets of the tournaments for the PPA draws on the line, it doesn't even say Jonny Andrews. It just says pickleball. And that is, as a respect thing to me, it's just Jonny Pickleball. So that's kind of how it is to be, and really, to be that is something where if you've been in pickleball for a long time or even for a short time, the name of Jonny Pickleball became a thing of where it's like, if you've ever slept in your car to be at a tournament, I probably have too. If you have, anything negative or positive that you've ever done in pickleball, I've probably been there at some point.
Well, you have
And
done
so it's just kind of a thing.
Well, you have done such a good job clearly branding yourself. And something you also mentioned was not hiding behind another brand. So in doing so, has that kind of created more of a demand for sponsorships for you? Or how does sponsorships work in pickleball?
Oh, yes. So those have been interesting to see grow throughout the years too, right? I mean, talk about some turnover. You have players, you have companies that come into pickleball all the time. They're like, yeah, we'll sponsor some pros, and they're like, all right, cool. And so you get sponsored by them, and then they figure out that there's not a lot of return on investment on pros. And so, or it's really hard to do, right? And so if they don't monetize it correctly, or if they don't advertise or market it correctly. And so yeah, sponsorships have come and gone from me. I've dealt with a lot of different companies, and I've always, I think left on pretty good terms, and have had. But yeah, sponsorships can be, ambassadors and sponsors are very different. And I know I did a podcast a long time ago of explaining that and kind of being a buzzkill for people that think they're sponsored, but it's actually just an ambassador program. They just get some free gear. But they love to say that they're sponsored, and that's cool, man. I'll walk around like a billboard for them, and they love it, I promise. But sponsorships, yeah, I think they work in the sense that they used to be at the beginning was just anybody and everybody was just trying to get stuff paid for tournaments, and tournaments weren't as expensive then, so paddle companies could actually kind of fund that. But everything started to get so expensive that paddle companies couldn't afford it. So I was actually one of the first people that actually got somebody outside of paddles to sponsor them. I had a VA home mortgage company sponsor me, and it was super funny, man, because I would like walk around with like all these t-shirts that I give out to people. It was called like loanwithrick.com, you know what I mean? It was like something funny. And so I had that guy help me out a lot. He was with VA, and so we had the military connection there, and it was cool. He helped me a lot, and then I started looking at different products, and so all those things to now we see sponsors that are much bigger and doing much better now, which is really cool. And so that part's really neat to see as well. But the sponsorships now are, the landscape of those are just completely different, and the negotiations to the point where if you have to have an agent, right? You have to, like, at this point you have to, and if you don't, it's going to be really difficult.
So sponsorships are growing, the landscape's changing, but pickleball itself has grown immensely. Describe the growth, whether it comes from participation, whether it comes from being able to see it more often and hear about it, or probably a combo of both is what we usually see. Describe the participation levels and or the content viewing capabilities, because I've seen pickleball on YouTube. That's where I watch it the most. It is on YouTube, but like, again, learning about it, playing it, and then seeing it, and then knowing where to play and who to play with. You can be a part of Facebook groups, but describe kind of how it's grown so fast and why maybe it's grown so fast.
Oh, it's accessible. How many times have you been able to go out and get a pickup game of basketball lately at a park, right? Or tennis for that matter? It just doesn't happen as much anymore. I mean, basketball still, yeah, I'm sure in certain places, but tennis, very rare. And so with pickleball, it's accessible. People are going to the parks. It's relatively inexpensive, or, it was at the time, right? And now it's starting to get a little bit more. But I mean, even then, compared to other sports, it's not. And so I think accessibility and the ability to just, it's easy to play, hard to master, right? So I think, but you can see instant improvement by doing it a few times. And so, and you hear the sound, the visual of smacking the ball and then hearing it, and then all the things, and so that part's really cool. But you can go out and compete, no problem. So I think that, yeah, I think accessible is probably the best word to describe how it is. And then all the courts are starting to pop up like dandelions. You don't need that much space, but I also think you don't need that much time. So normally, if you're going out and saying, "All right, man, we're going to play tennis together," this, if you don't like your partner, it's going to be a while. So in pickup games in pickleball, they take like 10 minutes, 10 to 15-minute games. And that's really about it. And it's like, hey, Phyllis, this was fun, but cool. I'm going to move on, meet new people. And then you're good. And then you can keep going on and nobody's feelings are hurt. It's all good. So I think that part has been, when you look at the numbers of things too, for not everybody, when we think of people that are playing, we think of tournaments, obviously, but like I think of more there's pretty much on the triangle 3 things, and it's tournament or professionals, amateurs, recreational players, right? So that's the triangle, and the bottom 2 of those, amateurs and recreational players, make up the majority. So about less than 1% are professionals. And so when I start to think of recreation, that's a big chunk, because there's probably, there's not as many tournament players as you think. There are, obviously, everyone's starting to compete a little bit more. They'll do local tournaments and stuff like that, so they can, claim that they beat their friends, but which is awesome. But the recreational players that go out every day as it's a routine, and you get your retirees that like to do that. It doesn't matter if it's about to rain or not. They're out there 8 a.m. This is what I do, and then I go out to lunch at 12:15 or whatever. But that's where I think that those recreational players that's what makes it grow more, is because they're always around. They're always ready to play.
So how many numbers would you say in the past couple of years, or what is the number for pickleball players? If you could do a census or a survey, would you say it's grown up to?
I don't know anymore. I hear so many different things, man. I know it's in the millions. I don't know what it is. I really don't. I've heard 12 million. I've heard 8. I've heard 2. I've heard 4. I've heard all across the board. But I don't know what the problem with that is I don't know the variable of that. Meaning, like, there people will say that it's like 12 million, but like, does that mean you've just touched a paddle? You know what I mean? Like, and so the numbers are kind of are a little iffy in my mind. So I think it's obviously probably in the millions. I believe that totally, but I don't know exactly what that number would be. But I know, but I'm just happy to see it. It's continuing to grow, and hopefully we can get it to kind of grow more internationally as well.
Well, regardless, you love to see it. I love seeing people
Yeah.
active and out there and play it. And I have so much fun with it. But I love seeing people of all ages and all skill levels out there just trying it and playing it and enjoying it. So, next question for you, the PPA. So you've mentioned, I know you play on the PPA tour, but you're also a director. Now,
Mhm.
could you explain the difference between the PPA and the MLP?
Yeah, totally. So yes, I am with the PPA. I'm a contracted player with the PPA, so I play at all the professional tournaments. And then the MLP, so those are tournaments. So the PPA are tournaments. That is the best of the best taking on each other in doubles teams and singles and mixed doubles as well. So those are for the bracket there. Major League Pickleball is a team landscape. So you have teams that take on each other with a different point system, different rally. They do different, different point system, the different ways to score. They do rally scoring versus traditional. And so trying to create a team atmosphere and environment with everybody rooting for each other there and kind of their city. And for PPA, it is everyone just trying to be the best. Who wants to be the best? Who wants to be on that podium? And so that is that the differences are huge, obviously, I think. And for those, there are people that they love one over the other, and it doesn't, it some people just love them both. So there's pros and cons of each, right? So
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for sharing that. And
yeah.
so I want to go back a little bit and hear a little bit more about your experience as a veteran, if you're open to sharing kind of what
Oh,
that
for
was
sure.
like and how that may have helped you become the athlete that you are today.
Yeah. So, being in the Army, I was a combat arms. I was a cavalry scout, so I was the first one in, last one out. And so, yeah, when I got out, it was time for me to get out. And after deploying, and when I did, I think it's important to say that when people get out, and I mentioned this in something else recently, that um, when you get out, when I was in charge of millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment, like you name it, tanks, weapons, and so when you're the breadwinner and you get out, it is very, very, very easy to feel lost. Um, when you have those, being in charge of so many different things, and now, it's very hard. And so the understanding for other veterans and getting that part, I mean, the last thing they would ever want to do, probably, but they do it anyway just because you have to sometimes, but is get out and have someone in a corporate world who hasn't done anything that you're doing try to tell you to do stuff. It's really hard. But so it's really difficult. But I completely get it. And but their understanding of feeling lost is a real thing, and I think people get troubled by that pretty heavy. And so you know for when I got out, was I lost? Absolutely, I was. I was completely lost. Pickleball was a great outlet for me. Now I took it to a whole new level versus just with the outlet of it being a community outlet and reaching stuff like that. I took it as this is going to be my next job. So the discipline and stuff that and that I acquired from the military of being able to do something and really working with a wide range of diverse personalities. So that helps a lot too, and just kind of being a little more cultured by traveling around the world a little bit. But I think that always helps too. So, but coming into pickleball from it, the military stuff, by having that kind of lost feeling when I did get into pickleball, it was one of those things where I was like, oh, okay, I think I can do this. But no one at the time knew what pickleball was. And so when you're a breadwinner, or like when I was, or whatever I was doing, to say, hey, I'm going to do pickleball, imagine how that went over. So that did not go over very well with people. And so it was a little tricky in that regard. But I was like, no, I think something's here. I think something's going to happen with this. I don't know. I'm gonna keep doing it. And slowly but surely everything started to get better as we went. But yeah, the military stuff, I hope people will in the future use it for an outlet, and so I've done clinics around the country where I'll go do my camps or my clinics or something like that. But then I've always done free veterans clinics wherever I go to. When I was doing them on my own, and so that part was really cool to connect with different people, and to hear their experiences a little bit. And we never know sometimes, right? Like I know I had a guy that took my clinic with me as a free veterans clinic, and I had no idea anything about it. We were just joking around. Like I love teaching veterans. They all get my jokes. I mean, a lot of my jokes are different terminology that I learned from the military, but I've used it over in a funny way, because that's the way I deal with things a lot is through humor. And so it's when I'm talking to people about not rushing to the kitchen line after their third shot, I'm like, don't rush to failure. And so I'll tell people, don't rush to failure. And they're like, that's funny. I'm like, yeah, I heard that when I was in war. There's different context, obviously, but like stuff like that. And, but they don't know that. And so there's certain things that I say all the time that are kind of little isms from the Army that I got. My favorite word in the Army that I used all the time in pickleball, I use it still when I teach people, is, but it would behoove you. And so, well, little, that's my favorite word of all time. It would behoove you, because I remember getting yelled at by drill sergeants and all these people all the time with the word, it would behoove you, just in a different way. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, so I think that kind of stuff has been kind of fun, but just kind of going for it, I think has been the biggest thing, because I think, there were things where you want to finish your mission, you want to continue to do stuff all the time. and until you get it done. And I kind of took pickleball in that challenge for myself too. But I had to think outside the box a lot too, with all these things that, I started to create all the time. So I created a podcast. I was the first one to create a show, that there's all these little things that I started creating, but there had to be just the discipline to do it. And so one of the things with pickleball that's really interesting when you start looking at loyalty of brands or whatever it might be is through consistency. And so if you're not consistent, anybody can do stuff for a little while, right? And then they go away. So there's so many people that have come and gone from pickleball. I've been doing this for about eight years already, and I'm just now finally getting my chance to really compete on tour full time. And it took me 8 years, and I'm taking full advantage of it right now, and I don't take it for granted. But I wasn't good enough to come from tennis and play for 6 months and be gifted the tour. And it's just not that wasn't in the cards for me. I've always had to be, yeah, I work really, really hard. Not to say that they don't, but I mean, like, I've had to put in more time than probably I ever wanted to, and so that's the kind of thing where I think just the consistency of doing something. I remember driving a Humvee. I remember I was driving a Humvee once, and I had this staff sergeant with me or whatever. And I was I don't know, I was going fast and I was going slow. I was going fast. And he looked at me and he said, "You're not very consistent of a person, are you?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. I don't know." But I thought I was. But something with that stuck with me. And so through pickleball, I've always wanted to be consistent in what I do. If I start it, I need to be consistent with it, and it will grow. You just have to wait and see. And I think a lot of people get discouraged because pickleball is something where you have instant success because anybody can go out and play, but then you hit a peak where you actually have to put in a lot of work, and you're like, gosh, I guess I'll just go play locally still whenever once in a blue moon. But they hit the wall and they don't have the discipline to go to the next level. It's hard, man. And you guys are professional athletes as well. So you have to know what I'm talking about there.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. The parallels in pole vaulting are absolutely on point. Everybody reaches their peak, and then once you've reached it, you have to decide how you're going to work on your weaknesses and how you're going to stay disciplined to stay
Yeah.
there for a while until you can overcome that peak. But yeah, to say the least, the investment in pickleball has behooved you,
Yeah.
and you're still here working now, and you're going better than you've ever done before, and you're seeing the
Yeah.
results from your consistency. So kudos to you on that.
Thanks.
Tell us a little bit about your most memorable experiences / wins and losses in pickleball since you've been doing it so long and working so hard at it.
Oh man, I mean, even one of the first times, let's say, I remember medaling at the U.S. Open, and I remember in the pro doubles, even it was just a bronze medal, just to be able to do that, that was a memorable moment for me to be able to medal at the U.S. Open, and so that was really cool. That's always up there. And then there was an even just to be able to compete at some of the places like even though I didn't do anything special there, but it was like to be able to compete at nationals at Indian Wells a long time ago, that was a really big deal for me to be able to travel from Florida to California, because I hadn't, that wasn't something that was in the cards for me early on. I had two boys and going through a divorce, and I wasn't able to travel for tournaments early on like other people were. And so being able that one time to do it, it was great. It was the coolest thing in the world to me at the time. And so there's little things like that where I've had some moments where it's very surreal moments, throughout my career, and the career still goes right now, right? So even being able to compete on a regular basis right now, I think is something that I'm not, like I said, I'm not taking it for granted. And each moment I step on the court right now, I'm super, super excited to be able to do it. And yeah, I think with I can think of a couple other places that where I've competed around the country. I always thought that Red Rock in St. George was really cool, and the reason why that was memorable is because that was probably one of the first tournaments we had a snow delay, and so we were playing outside, and we had a snow delay, and so it was like 30 degrees, and we make it to center court. And you don't realize, and I still don't realize once in a while, that people know who I am. And so it was a really kind of surreal moment that, people were rooting for me in 30-degree weather, and the stands were full on center court at a PPA tournament years ago. And that part, right, to me was a really interesting moment. For some reason, like I'm freezing I got super sick afterward. I was so sick. I was
Oh
sweating, and
man.
it was really bad. But it was like, at the time I was like, oh, okay, we're just gonna keep going right now because these people are here in 30-degree weather, like it's Green Bay Stadium or something. So but yeah, I remember that moment very vividly too. And so, that kind of stuff is really cool to me.
Yeah, and it's just cool to hear your story. Obviously, here at Sport is Life, we're all about just finding that's just the beauty in sport. It really just fills your cup, and just from your time finishing up in the Army to finding that next thing in life that really lights you up and just gives you that passion and purpose. Pickleball really is that for you. You're so involved with playing and just
Yeah.
all sides of it. So is this something that you see yourself doing for a long time?
Yeah, yeah, I do. I think, right now we're about to enter into something that people haven't really talked about and they haven't thought about it, and that is life after pickleball. And so that is something that people haven't really talked about yet because no one thinks there is life after pickleball.
That's what I was thinking. I thought you just do pickleball for life.
Yeah, so especially in the pro world, so right now I am although yes, I'm contracted as a pro player, I am also the director of programming, camps, and events for the entire tour. And so I wrote the curriculum, helped write the test actually even 6, 7 years ago for the IPTPA, which was for people to even become instructors. And so I helped with that too. I wrote in curriculum for different camps and organizations for a long time quietly. That's something that I have never been known for, but it was something that I've been doing very quietly over time, to the point where the PPA wanted to give me a shot and to be able to do that and create camps for the tour. There was a moment, I think, fairly recently, a year ago or something like that, where I was able to teach a clinic at the tournament. I have never taught a clinic at a major tournament. Wow. Like, it's just a different atmosphere. It's a different vibe. It was a different, like, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so energized. Like, this is crazy. There's so many people around. There's vendors. There's all the things, right? As you mentioned, and there's music going from stadium court, and you're learning pickleball on right next to everything that's happening. And I thought that was the coolest thing. And so, because I've taught with so many different pros over the years, it wasn't my curriculum. This was like a Frankenstein curriculum that I created, and it was of all the best things from each person that I've worked with, and into a nice progressive flow. And so it's never like, this is mine. I'll give you examples of whose it is, but then they might, come after me for money. I don't know, but it's all good. But they, once that was done, the camps have been going really well so far. So, I run all the camps at every single tournament. So all 26, I'll be at all 26 around the tour. And the biggest thing with those is I've wanted to make an impact and do something that, is the whole reason why I joined the Army. Was I always wanted to be a part of something that was bigger than myself. And so every time there's been a consistent thing of that with me for a long time. And so with the camps, I'm wanting to do something that's bigger than myself. And so what that is in this instance is that, the pro journey is going one way and the amateur journey is going the other. And so this is the first time. Camps is the only time where a pro's journey and an amateur's journey intersect,
Mhm.
because they want the information and you want the money. So, but that's your time to make an impact with people. And so I wanted to create the camps for the tour to interact the pros on tour with the amateurs and recreational players and spectators that come to the tournament. And so that is what's been happening. So at every tournament, I fly in before everybody else, and I teach a 2-day camp, and then I have to play. But everybody else, they come in, they're well rested, they play, they do their thing. My road hasn't been easy, so I for consistency purposes, I want to make sure that it still isn't. And so I thought I would go ahead and I do these camps, and then I go right into playing singles, then mixed, then men's, and then I go into commentary. So now I've been doing. I was the original commentator for the PPA tour that people forget about, and so I was
Wow.
the first one ever on ESPN2. I was competing with a Super Bowl, but whatever at the first
Oh,
time. But
go big or go
yeah, but it was good.
home.
Yeah. It was, yeah, nobody watched me, I'm sure. But we were on ESPN2 in Darling Tennis Center in Las Vegas. And so even to be able to do commentary again when I can with the tour is great. And I think I was on ESPN2 this past, weekend, which is cool once again. And then the emceeing part of Championship Sunday. If, personally, yes, would I rather be playing? Absolutely. But, if I get beat, then I'm going to find other things to do to help. So with what I got. So that's been really cool to be able to do all these things with the tour. So yeah, the whole thing of being able to do camps and stuff has been just it's been awesome, and they just keep growing. So
You sound like a guy who loves to have his hands in everything and wants to encourage and enjoy learning new ways to be busy.
yeah.
I can relate to that a little bit. How do you balance it successfully, and or what's something that you found like if you had to give something up, what would you give up?
Well, I think it won't be my choice in X amount of time, right? I think I'll have to give up the playing at some point, and so I think I didn't even get, the reason why with doing all those things, and I didn't even get to really answer what you said was like, you know, the time of me playing it in is will come to a close, right? So life after pickleball will come to a close. And so when that happens, people are going to go in so many different directions. And some people will disappear entirely. Some people already have. Some people will go do something completely different and not play pickleball anymore or whatever. Some people will go be head coaches and directors at clubs. Some people will work for the association like I do, right? So I will work and always be around and have my hands in everything. But if I was to give something up, it will inevitably be playing. That will happen. And so, me setting myself up right now to be with the tour for a very long time and help with all my grassroots things and all the experiences that I've done to be able to help shape the tour throughout years to come is I am extremely grateful for that opportunity. And so it's super, super cool. And it really kind of tripped me out a little bit, even just to be heard whenever I would speak at the tour headquarters. Like they're listening to me. Oh my God. Okay, cool. All right, cool. They actually want to know. Because when that tour started, I was there at the beginning with them anyway. And so it's just really interesting to see that kind of stuff start to take place. And so, but that's where I kind of see what am I going to give up? I would give up probably the playing eventually, right? Because we're getting close to that eventually. I'm not even going to say now, but if I had to give up something right now, gosh, it would probably be the MC part, right? Give me one day to chill. But yeah, I think that kind of stuff that stuff's a lot, man. It's a lot of energy, but all good.
It's nice though if you get the I guess play the game just before the championship, you obviously have the inside scoop of how the players are playing, what shots they're hitting pretty well, and where
Yeah.
their consistency comes into play. So that it's really cool to see, I guess, the opportunity of a player in a tournament also MC the game
Yeah.
potentially that they could have been playing. So who fills you in if you are playing?
Oh, yeah, that's the kicker. So the good news is the majority of players I've played against over the years, right? And so most of everybody I already know. And then everybody else, there's some kind of film or maybe I asked other people around the venue if there's people that I'm playing that I've never played before. Very rare at this point in time now on the PPA tour. It's kind of like probably like the golf tour. It's the same people, all the time, like a traveling circus. So which is kind of cool. But one thing I even do now is they put it on and it's done very well. We created a show with the PPA tour and it's called Inside the Lines that I host. And yeah, I've done that too. So I do that too. And it's where I actually dissect and analyze matches from the PPA and I go through it. It's an educational thing, and even the commentator, that is the main commentator. She told me, she said, I actually watch your show so that I learned about the players, and I was like, cool, man, yeah, But it makes it really easy to do any kind of commentary or MC or anything on the players because I've analyzed these guys now. Can I execute everything that I'm talking about all the time? No. It's awesome. I always tell people whenever I do that show, I am undefeated from this chair. I have never lost a point, and it's very easy in the moment to screw shots up or whatever, but it's very easy from a chair to say what they should have done. But that's the cool part. So yeah, all that stuff has been fun.
Well, that just makes it even better for the viewership and the sport, just having that inside scoop, and it just makes it so much more entertaining, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So can you talk to me a little bit about the transition from tennis into pickleball? Obviously, there's some similarities, but they're obviously very different sports. So, and you also coach a lot of athletes. So could you maybe speak to it from the perspective of an athlete transitioning from tennis to pickleball, and also how you might approach that player as a coach and trying to teach them?
Yeah, absolutely. We have so there's a bunch of different nuances from tennis to pickleball. And I was just going over that with somebody else recently too. And a lot of that, people try to swing too big, they try to do too much. And actually, what I notice more than anything is they're too busy with their feet. The footwork is really different, and that's what takes the longest to understand is the footwork, and then the acceleration is after contact. When you play pickleball, not before, more like ping pong in that regard. And so the backswing is really not necessary. And when you watch really high level players, there's different body movements. So footwork, and then paddle position, body position, and then your court positioning usually helps from tennis just for some court awareness. But yeah, just some of the nuances from, you know, yeah, that paddle position and how you actually drop the paddle head more than trying to do a top spin, like all those little things of just trying to do too much when less is more. And so I think that was the biggest thing for tennis players is the footwork and trying to do too much. That
Yeah.
seems to be the biggest kicker throughout anything. Now, it just so happens my mixed doubles partner coming up in Austin, Texas, PPA Austin, Texas. She was a very good tennis player. She was ranked 5 in the world. And so she is Miss Jeannie Bouchard. And so she will be my mixed doubles partner in Austin, Texas. And she just transitioned from tennis to pickleball. And so she is learning all those things I just mentioned. And so I coached her a little bit in Mesa recently, where she played singles, mixed, and I didn't play mixed with her in that one, but I mixed and women's doubles. But I was on her bench and tried to help with what I can because she hasn't been there very long and she's starting to learn all those nuances a little bit too. So yeah, when I coach people like that, a lot of it is saying exactly the same thing. Less is more, shorter, more compact motions versus major motions. So you keep like I never tell people to watch the ball hit the paddle. Like I would never tell anybody. I would throw up personally. That'd be terrible. Can you imagine? It's just all over the place. So I actually tell people to just keep the ball on the paddle in their line of sight as much as possible. And so if the paddle's outside the line of sight, it's too much. And so that tends to help a little bit with people as far as just visual. And so some people will be like, well, I really love my backhand. That's because you don't have the ability to take it out of your line of sight. And so as far anyway. So there's little things, little details like that can help make things very easy. And I will tell you this, the one thing that has been very, very, I use a lot of the things from the military to my teaching in the sense that and they broke it down. Everything was building on something else. So you were building on the next thing and the next thing based on the things that you've already learned, right? So you can't go on if you don't learn the stuff before. And so I do that the same in pickleball. The way I teach it, we start with something and we just keep building on it. So, but the thing is, they're like, well, what if we don't get it? Oh no, like in the Army, we broke it down so much to the point where you have to. And so where it was like a no fail thing. And so I kind of do that the same way. I'm not saying everybody gets it all the time, but it doesn't necessarily click all the time, but it's broken down so much in a simplistic way that, I mean, people start to get it right away and then we just build on it. And it's a really cool thing. And so I do that the same way with my coaching with anybody. And so that part is really cool because now I start to see people. I mean, they haven't announced it yet or whatever it might be, but a lot of these people that are at camps that come to the camps before the tournament with me, they're winning medals, which is really cool at their amateur level, but they're winning medals right now. And I'm not saying that's just my doing, but I mean, it's not hurting. So, which is kind of neat to see as well.
Yeah, playing the impact on the coaching role is huge, and keeping it simple is obviously a wonderful thing for everybody. You can make it as complicated as you want, and we're not pro tennis players by any means, nor pickleball players, but you see a lot of pro tennis players coming into the pickleball avenue, and they seem to catch on pretty quickly. And as you're explaining, there's our little things that you just kind of take away. What would you say are some of the major differences aside from footwork, backswing? Like they learn quickly and they're capable of enjoying pickleball differently. The games are shorter, but like what's the draw that makes I guess more retired, or people are retiring from tennis and going right into pickleball as like a continuation of their lifetime sport almost.
Yeah, it's so because of the less is more is really in their wheelhouse, right? So it's not, I mean, it can still be pretty hard on your knees and ankles and stuff like that. Pickleball, I'm not gonna lie and say it's not, but the amount of movement can be much, much less because the court is much smaller, obviously. But it's much less because if you have hands, and so people typically have pretty good hands from tennis. They have good hand-eye coordination, right? And so when they come over, placement of the ball can make it so they don't have to move as much. And so if they work on placement over power, which you can achieve in pickleball because it's all about kind of slowing things down and waiting for that moment and then having quick hands, then you don't have to move as much, which enables you to still enjoy the game. And so the biggest thing that people retirees complain about most of the time, if anything, is when they get lobbed. And so then they have to go chase something down. So, you know, so
Um,
that's really the biggest difference that I see with anything. And then really the biggest perk is that they can go out, they can do the routine, they can get a good sweat. You get a great workout from pickleball, and yeah, I think that's what it's all about. They want the workout aspect of it. I'm a big fan of working out without knowing it. And so pickleball is great for me.
I'm right on line with you there. She's a
Yeah.
little different. She loves knowing the workout and planning the workout and then going for it. But
I
I'm
like
like,
playing too.
yeah, I'm with you. I was like, I'll do the workout as long as I don't know I'm working out.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So back to a little bit of personal. What are your goals when it comes to both being a player and commentator and being involved in the PPA and everything you have? What are some of your goals coming up?
Yeah. So some of the things that I would say, because people ask me all the time, it's really funny. They'll ask about, what's your 5-year plan in pickleball? And like, man, it hasn't been done yet. I don't know. Because pickleball is ever changing, it's ever growing, it's ever moving and shifting and going. And so that means I have to be flexible with that, with even my goals, right? And so all of those things, I always tell people pro pickleball is not for everyone. I mean, you guys have done pro sports yourself. I mean, it's pro pickleball is definitely not pro sports even. The ebbs and flows of it, can be very exhausting. And I'm telling you, everybody always needs an accountant. If you need some stability, man, that's, go do your thing. But with pickleball, it's, you have to be okay with doing well sometimes and not doing well other times, and really not having stability all the time. That's not a thing that you're going to have. So my goals though with pickleball obviously is to just make, and what it's been all along is just to make the greatest impact I can on people around the sport. And so through whatever means that is, and that's where that goal itself is achievable. And it's a very personal one to me that I want to make sure that I can achieve to over time as well. So that thing can keep me going for a long time, obviously. So
Well, I've also got another question for you. I'm curious what you think the landscape looks like for women's pickleball. Is it kind of keeping pace with men's pickleball, or what are your thoughts on that?
it's getting there. It took some time. I mean, we're starting to get to the point where we finally saw a qualifying event for a women's doubles or in singles, or I think it's women's doubles. So usually, it's getting there. It's yeah. For mixed doubles, it's really hard still. It's like a 1 to 75 ratio from men to women. It seems like for partnerships and stuff like that. But when you get to, women's doubles is extremely entertaining. I think it's more entertaining. It's a slugfest out there. It's great. I love it. I love it. It's awesome. Women's singles is good too. But Yeah, I think the talent pool is starting to gain depth. Is it there with the men in a sense of numbers? Not yet, but it's on its way for sure. But it's definitely entertaining to watch. I mean, we have, the funny part is, I mean, we have a 17-year-old running the show right now, right? So she's just dominating, and I mean, I have pictures of. It's super funny. I get these stories. Do you guys get these stories? There's like these Facebook stories that pop up, and it'll be like from 4 years ago, your memories or something.
Oh yeah.
And so, yeah, 4 years ago, she would have been what, 13, and so they pop up when I was at her birthday or something like. It was just super fun. So we go. I mean, all these people, man. It's no matter who they are, we go way back, which is super cool. And so to see people grow like that is incredible. And it's but yeah, for women's pickleball, it's going to keep growing. It's just going a little bit slower, but yeah, it'll get there for sure.
Yeah, and so she's 17 now. So did she
Hmm.
start at 13 or when did she start?
No, I remember her first tournament because I was there. She was 10. She was 10 years old. And so I can tell you she was playing with a yellow paddle. It was a yellow paddle tech TS5 paddle that probably cost $70. Not even, probably $50 at the time, $59. But yeah, it was in Plantation, Florida. It was 2000 whatever, but she was 10 years old. And so I was playing too. I was playing, yeah, singles and doubles and whatever else. And I remember watching her. She was playing singles and just dominating on this older lady. It
Wow.
was terrible. It was funny to watch.
Start. She was going to be a star.
So
Yeah.
she's done phenomenal. Do you think anyone is coming up in a similar fashion to compete against Annalie Waters, or is she like head and shoulders above everybody at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, she's pretty above everybody right now. It's fun to watch. It's a treat to watch. I'm not saying that there isn't somebody out there. I can think of a couple people if they had the right partners that could really challenge the 64 no team or whatever they are right now. But um, there are people that could do it if they could mix up some partners.
Yeah.
I would say that right now. Everything in pickleball, a lot of it at the pro level, everybody's amazing. They really are, and people don't realize how good these people are just because you don't see them and they're not on podium, man. They're incredible. It's really, really, really hard, and it's one of those things. I remember I told somebody from even just Desert Ridge recently. They're like, "Okay, Johnny, how'd you do?" I was like, "I think we got 24th out of like 60 teams," and they're like, okay, that's really amazing. I'm like, what are you talking about? I don't think it's very good. They're like, dude, it's the best players in the world. Like, I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I guess so. But it's partnerships. It's hard to get in with the partnerships are really difficult. You need the partnerships. If you place somebody in the top 50 with the number one player in the world, they're still going to medal. And so it doesn't, that's where it's really interesting. You know, we've seen it before. I can think of a team that won gold where it was one of the top players with a guy that was probably in the top 50, 60, and they won gold. And so it's all partnerships. These guys are all incredible. The top 100 in pickleball are incredible. And I know the 50s, 60s. I think that's where I'm at right now in the world right now. So I mean, like, and I got up pretty high at one time. I think I was as high as like 19. But I mean, at the same time, it's that's the depth, and it's getting deeper, and it's getting tougher, and these guys are very good at what they do.
Just a question that's been proposed, I guess. Can Jack Sock beat Ben Johns?
Hmm. I don't know yet. I don't know. I don't think so. Not yet. Not yet. No, no, not yet. And I think people forgot. And I told our journalists this actually, because I said I think everybody's kind of forgotten. Jack Sock's been playing pickleball for a while, and I think people forget he's been playing for like 3 years. And so they just he just didn't take it serious. It's different. He just didn't take it serious. But he's been playing for a while. So I think that's helped his, now that he takes it serious, I think that's really helping his journey progress quicker and people like than others. Because a lot of it in pickleball is about time and experience. And so do I think he can beat Ben? Not right now. Not yet. No, I mean, time and experience is on Ben's side. Ben started in Naples, Florida in 2016 at 17 years old with a group of us. So at that park that I started. So that was the same crew. And so there was, the time and experience will always be on Ben's, he'll always have that. But, it just, could he catch him on a day later on down the road this year? I don't know. We'll see.
Time
I
experience is a
I would
beautiful
be.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, you never know right now. I mean, like I said, these guys are so good. Anything's possible sometimes. Given the right conditions and given the right, just day on the court, you never know. Singles, especially singles. I mean, you can catch fire in singles and it's over and you didn't even know what just happened. And so that stuff that happens all the time. But yeah, so when you see people consistently win at singles at the top, that's what's really incredible because people get hot all the time in singles and start painting lines. So
One off the wall question here.
oh, please.
Most memorable person you've had on camera that you weren't expect or on the podcast that you weren't expecting and why?
Oh, I didn't think at the time that he would. I've had different shows over the years where I've had professional athletes, right? And this one, I would say Mike Skinner. And Mike Skinner is a Hall of Fame NASCAR driver. And Hall of Famer, I'm a good friend of mine now. Like him and his wife are great friends. They put me on Sirius XM or NASCAR radio. That's what they run it, and they put me on it, man. But yeah, and Mike is he was called the Gunslinger. He's in the Hall of Fame, and he was the only teammate of Dale Earnhardt, and super cool guy. And so I did a show in Mountain Falls in a motor coach resort, which sounds like I always called it the trailer park to them, and they're like it's like $1 million buses, but whatever. Yeah, and so but I was doing like a pregame show, and all of a sudden he comes out and he gets on the thing, and photos and all this other stuff too. But yeah, we've been great friends ever since. He's a funny guy, but it's just yeah, that was a really cool moment to have him jump out there and do that, and I always thought that was neat. Yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, Jonny Pickleball, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you just keep doing everything you're doing out there, inspiring everyone, and we'll be rooting for you. I love just seeing you are excelling in all areas in the pickleball realm, and I just want to watch.
Yeah, you can definitely watch. You guys, everybody can always follow me too, man. You can
Oh,
find me
yes,
on
where's a
Instagram.
good place
Yes.
to follow you?
Yeah, you can see. So at Jonny_pickleball. There's no H in Johnny, so it's always JONNY. That's a thing. And so at Jonny_pickleball is my Instagram, and then Jonny Pickleball Andrews is on Facebook, but I also have Jonny Pickleball because Facebook made me. And then yeah, and then anything obviously, if you put in any other social media, you put in Jonny Pickleball without an H in Johnny, you're gonna find me. I really appreciate you guys let me jump on here with you too. This has been a lot of fun. So I thank you so much.
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. This has been a pleasure. Hey guys, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. If you liked this episode, then please go ahead, subscribe, like, or comment. This helps us grow more than you know, so we can keep making more content like this.
Or you can visit us on sportfuelslife.com and register to become a member for free, so you never miss another podcast episode. Thanks for listening.
Do it, you won't regret it.